KL Publications presents A Touch of Wisdom by Ryan C. Sanders. Abena sat on a creaky wooden porch of her small cabin deep in the heart of the ancient forest. The late afternoon sun filtered through the towering trees, casting long shadows across the clearing. Her weathered hands rested on her lap, and her eyes, cloudy but still sharp with the fire of wisdom, gazed into the distance, lost in the memories of her long and arduous journey. At 87 years old, Abena had become a living testament to the power of resilience and faith. Raised by the wisdom of her ancestors, with the 42 Laws of Maat as her only guide, she had learned to navigate life's hardship with grace. She was but 2 years old when her parents passed, leaving her in the care of distant relatives who had little time for the motherless child. Abena never knew the warmth of her mother's embrace or the strong, protective voice of her father. Instead, she found solace in the teachings passed down to her by her elders, who were deeply connected to the ancient ways of Ma'at. It was from that she learned the true peace comes not from the external world, but from the divine force within. As evening approached, Abena's quiet reflection was interrupted by the sound of footsteps crunching on dried leaves. She turned her head slightly to see a young couple approaching, their faces flushed with excitement and weariness of a day spent hiking. They looked out of place in the wilderness, their modern camping gear contrasting sharply with the timeless serenity of the forest. "Excuse us, ma'am," the young man called out as they neared her cabin. "We were out exploring and came across your place. We didn't mean to intrude." Abena smiled softly, her face creasing with deep lines that spoke of a life lived with intensity and purpose. "No intrusion at all, my dears," she replied, in a voice that was warm and as late as autumn breeze. "Please come sit a while." The couple hesitated for a moment before accepting her invitation. They settled onto the steps of the porch, looking around at the small, humble cabin and the tranquility that surrounded it. "My name is Adonis," the young man said, extending his hand toward her. "And this is my wife, Jasmine. We just got married last year." Abena nodded, her eyes gleaming with quiet understanding. "I am Abena," she said, "and you are newly joined in the sacred dance of life together. Tell me, how are you finding this dance?" Jasmine shifted uncomfortably. Her eyes dropped to her hands. It's been harder than we expected," she admitted. "We love each other, but there are moments when it feels like we're speaking different languages. We argue about the smallest things, and sometimes I wonder if we're really meant to be together." Adonis looked down, his face reflecting the weight of the words she had spoken, but seemed hesitant to agree openly. Abena watched them both in silence for a moment before speaking. "The journey of life, especially as partners, is not an easy one, but neither is it meant to be. The universe tests our hearts, our minds, and our spirits." It was a statement I remember hearing as a child. God, the universal creative force, will offend your mind to reveal what's in your heart. And only by looking within can we find the balance that Ma'at teaches. Jasmine frowned her brow. "Ma'at? What is that?" Abena leaned back in her chair, her voice deepening with the weight of ancient wisdom. "Ma'at is the simple principle of truth, balance, and cosmic order. It is the law that governs all things, from the rising of the sun to the beating of your heart. Long ago, when I was just a little girl with no mother to love or father protection, I was taught the 42 Laws of Maat by the elders who raised me. Those laws became my guide, my only companion through life. They taught me to find the divine within myself, to live in harmony with the world, and to always seek truth, justice, and balance." She paused, letting the silence settle around them before continuing. "One of the laws says, 'I have not caused the shedding of tears.' Another says, 'I have not polluted the water.' There are simple yet profound truths. To live a life of Ma'at is to live in harmony with the people and the earth. But it is also about living in harmony with yourself. That's where many young souls struggle." Adonis shifted. How do you How do you find that harmony? Abena smiled with her eyes twinkling with the wisdom of her many years. You must listen to the voice inside you, not the voice of your ego or your fears, but the divine voice, the one that knows balance and peace. It is that voice which guided me through life when I had no one else. And it was that voice that will guide you both if you listen. Jasmine looked at her husband, her eyes softening. We haven't been listening to each other. I've been too focused on being right. I'm sorry. Adonis reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. I'm sorry too. I guess I've been doing the same. Abena nodded, her heart swelling with a quiet satisfaction. It's not about who is right or who is wrong, she said. It's about finding the balance, the ma'at between you two. A relationship, much like life itself, is not about dominance or submission, but about flowing together like the river and the earth. You must learn to respect each other's truth just as you respect your own. The couple sat in silence for a moment, absorbing her words, the forest around them seeming to echo the ancient wisdom in the rustling of the leaves and the gentle breeze. The air felt different now, heavier with meaning. Abena stood slowly, her old bones creaking with age. She walked over to them, resting her hand lightly on Jasmine's shoulder. You are both young, she said softly, but if you learn this now, if you hold Ma'at in your hearts, your marriage will be stronger than any force that tries to break it. Jasmine looked up at her, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Abena smiled warmly. Go now, she said, and remember, balance is not something you achieve once and then forget. It's a dance. Sometimes you will stumble, but as long as you help each other back up, you will never fall too far. The couple stood, thanking Abena once more before making their way back into the forest. As they disappeared into the trees, Abena watched them, her heart light with the knowledge that her words had found fertile ground. She turned and walked back into her cabin, her soul at peace, for she knew that the laws of Ma'at had once again brought harmony to a world that so often forgot its way. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe.